Deck the halls with tamales. Did you really make me do that? I didn't think I was gonna have to sing in an episode. Anyways, it's obviously holiday season around here, so we're gonna make one holiday staple that has true ancient origins, the tamale. Hey there, I'm Sohla el-waylly, and this is Ancient Recipes with Sohla. In each episode, we take a dish you may recognize and attempt to recreate one of the oldest versions of it to ever exist. So it's a little cooking, a little history, and a whole lot of me. What's not to love? We're gonna go on a little bit of a journey through the history of the tamale. First, we're gonna make an ancient Mayan version using iguana meat. Yeah, that's right. I'm gonna sing and eat iguana meat today. And then we're gonna make a colonial-era Aztec tamale from after the conquest by Cortez in the 1520s, showing what Spanish ingredients they would have adopted. Tamales are a staple of Latin American cuisine around the holidays, and making them is truly a party. The whole family gathers around, assembly line style, stuffing, hand wrapping, and steaming the tamales. Along with the tradition, they have a long history dating back before the Mayan and Aztec civilizations, even before the Olmec civilization, which dates back to 1000 BCE. In fact, they were such a big part of Mayan culture, they even had an ancient hieroglyph for tamales. And to make things even more exciting, we have a special guest. If you've ever been to San Antonio or the Rio Grande Valley and had a tamale craving, then you've probably heard of Delia and her famous tamales. So for people who don't know, can you let us know a little bit about how your chain of restaurants began?
26 años para ser exacta. Mi hermana me dijo a mí que si podíamos, ¿por qué no hacemos tamales? Yo estaba viviendo en un lugar que no era mío, entonces pagábamos renta y todas esas cosas. Y le dije, pues vamos a empezar. Y como a mí no me gustaba la vida que llevaban mis hijas, yo decidí cambiar de modo de trabajar, porque yo no trabajaba. Trabajaba limpiando casas o donde me ocupaban. Entonces decidimos hacer tamales, compramos 5 libras de masa, las fuimos a vender ahí en la ciudad de Hidalgo y luego nos repartimos, dejamos dinero para comprar para el siguiente día y nos repartimos, y en ese entonces nos tocaron $2.50 cada una, fue la ganancia. Y de ahí fue como empezamos a hacer tamales. Y luego mi hermana se separó de mí y me quedé yo sola. Y duré como 2 o 3 semanas sin hacer nada y luego yo pensé, yo puedo sola. Y fue cuando empecé yo sola con una amiga que vivía, era mi vecina, y ella me empezó a ayudar y yo empecé de poco a poco con 10 libras de masa y luego 5 o 10 y me salía a venderlas yo sola. Pero gracias a Dios me tocaron muy buenos clientes que hasta ahorita me siento muy orgullosa de ellos. Algunas son mucho mayor que yo y todavía están conmigo y eso para mí es un orgullo. Y así fue como yo empecé. Y pues aquí estamos hasta la fecha, bendecidas grandemente. Ahorita tengo muchos asociados que son los que me hacen posible que Delias. Tengo a mis hijas que trabajan ahí, pero los muchachos trabajan en mi negocio como si fuera de ellos. Y eso es una gran bendición que tenemos.
What do you think people are drawn to about your tamales? Like, what's the magic?
La magia que nosotros tenemos es que desde que yo comencé a hacer tamales yo sola, yo traté de buscar la mejor calidad de los productos que yo podía comprar. Y ahorita hasta la fecha tratamos de usar lo mejor que podemos y yo creo que ese es parte del éxito. Y la receta nunca la hemos cambiado, seguimos con la misma. Entonces, y con el mismo proceso de comprar, como le digo, lo que creemos que es lo mejor. Y lo hacemos con mucho amor. Tengo mis muchachos que son hermosos y nunca están al pendiente de todo lo que pasa, cuidan el negocio como si fuera de ellos y eso no se paga.
Well, I mean, it's very obvious that you're really passionate about what you do. And I think that you can always taste that in the food. Like, you can taste it when something's made with love, so that makes a lot of sense. So before I get into making tamales, do you have any tips or tricks for me to think about as I get into this process?
Pues primero le puedo decir que tiene que buscar una masa que sea fresca. Entonces, cuando la masa es fresca, usted va a tener un mejor sabor. Entonces, de ahí, y Bueno, aparte tiene que embarrarla con la mano, con la cuchara y luego ya usted guisa su carne a su gusto y ya de ahí pues ya nomás los hace y los embarra y los llena despacito y le van a quedar súper bien. Bueno, pero tiene que echarle todos los condimentos, el chile de color, el ajito natural, y son muchas cosas.
Okay, so we're definitely going to get some high quality fresh masa. I will stay away from that instant stuff. That seems to be key. But before we let you go, I just have another question for you. So here we like to take an ancient recipe or a modern recipe and trace it back to its origins. So is there one recipe or dish that you'd like to see us trace back to the origins and like really find out where it came from?
I like the horse soup.
Oh, that's a good one. Oh, I love pho too, and I haven't really made it a lot. I think it'll be really interesting to see how all those ingredients came together. That's such a great idea. Thank you so much for being here today. I'm really excited to get in there and start making some tamales. So thanks so much for your advice and letting us know about your story. And yeah, I'm really happy to have met you.
Well, thank you very much. Muchísimas gracias por pensar en mí. Yo les agradezco mucho que me den esta oportunidad.
I love how passionate she is about tamales. Her story is so inspirational. And the thing that I think that I took away from that chat that was key to me is that we need to start with high quality masa. We reached out to a local wholesale tortilleria, La Milpa de Rosa, and they were kind enough to send us the corn in different stages. So making masa, it sounds really simple, but there's kind of a lot going on. You start with this dry corn, and then this corn gets soaked in an alkaline solution. It's like boiled, and then it sits there for a while, and it becomes this. And then that gets rinsed and ground, and you have with masa. To nixtamalize the corn, you soak it in something called calcium hydroxide, which sounds really fancy and scary, but it's actually just pickling lime. You can buy it from the grocery store. And then what it does to the corn is it makes it more nutritious, it makes it easier to grind, and it also makes the dough hold together a little bit better. So the way they would have done this way back then is you would grind this totally by hand in a molcajete. It takes forever. You just keep grinding and grinding and grinding, eventually you end up here. Today they have these really big stone grinders. You can even buy like a tabletop one called a wet grinder that does that for you. But I think it's crazy that they used to do that totally by hand and get it super smooth and pliable and this amazing dough. You cannot do this in a food processor. It's just not the same. It's gotta be that stone on stone action. So thank you for coming to my TED Talk about nixtamalizing corn. One of the keys to making tamales is you gotta whip your lard. Modern tamales have quite a bit of fat, and you whip that lard until it's really nice and fluffy, a lot like when you're making a cookie dough. And then you add your masa to that and your water, and you create this really nice emulsion that gives you like a fluffy and tender tamale. But there is consensus that the Mayans and Aztecs used very little fat in their cooking. So we're just gonna whip some salt and water into this. I think we're probably gonna have a denser tamale, but that's what it was like back then. Everyone ate food that was really dense. I'm just gonna do this by hand, and I'm gonna add a tablespoon at a time. So I'm looking for a smooth and spreadable texture so we can easily fillet our husks. So tamales are actually considered one of the world's first portable foods. They were used by hunters and warriors because they were portable and they can take it with them on long journeys. Okay, this feels good. So it's like really nice and spreadable now. And it's gonna be easy for us to wrap it around a filling. So masa does dry out very, very quickly. So I'm gonna scrape the sides of the bowl, get it all to the middle, and then we're gonna cover this and set it aside while we make our filling. Okay, so we're gonna start by making our ancient Mayan filling. So back then, the Mayans and Aztecs didn't actually have pigs or cows, but they did have peccaries, which are similar to a pig. Domesticated pigs and cows didn't come to them until the Spanish conquest. So they would have used things like turkey, wild game, frogs, salamanders, beans, guava, honey. But we really wanted to have some fun here. So we're gonna make our filling with iguana meat. Whoa, I've never had iguana meat. So we're gonna find out together what this tastes like. But to start, I'm gonna make a little simple chili sauce. We don't have an exact recipe, so we're gonna just, use ingredients that we know they would have had, and hopefully we get close. So these are some guajillo chilies, and what I'm doing is cutting off the stem and removing the seeds, and then we're gonna toast them and soak them before pounding them up in our molcajete to make a little chili puree. And we're gonna cook our iguana in that. Guajillos aren't actually that spicy. They're more fruity and very flavorful and almost like has like a dried fruit raisin kind of vibe. I really like them. They go great with a lot of different things. And the other chilies we're using here are dried chipotles. Everybody knows what a chipotle is, or at least they've had a burrito from a place called Chipotle. So we're gonna use 2 chipotles and 4 guajillos. This should have like a really nice balance of spicy, fruity. I'm gonna give them a toast in our comal, and this just helps like waken up the flavors. You don't wanna toast them for too long, but you will see that the color changes very slightly. It's gonna get a little bit dark, but the main thing is it's about the aroma. You're gonna smell it. You will definitely smell it, your neighbors will smell it. Toasting chilies gets all up in there. And we're not gonna go for too long. Just gonna get a little bit of color, and then we're gonna let this soak. It's best to soak it overnight. So we already soaked some chilies, but if all you've got is a couple hours, that's cool too. Okay, see how quickly that just got a little bit blackened and it got a little bit toasty. That's exactly what we want. It just like brings those flavors forward. Okay, so you can see it's getting really nice and smoky. We have very good ventilation here, so it's not a big deal. So the chili smoke really gets to you. It's gonna be worth it. One awesome way that the Aztecs would use chilies is they would actually make these little chili bombs that they would throw at their enemies, almost like an ancient version of pepper spray. I can see how that would work very well. Okay, so now we're gonna char some onions and tomatillos. Tomatillos are native to Central and South America. They look a lot like a tomato with a peel. And when you peel it off, it's a little bit sticky underneath. Don't worry, that's just how it is. And when you char it, that stickiness goes away. They're super, super tart and a little bit bitter, so they're best like cooked or blended with something else. Now we want to get a little bit blackening here, and it's just going to give us some nice flavor. So tamales have been made for thousands and thousands of years for different festivals and rituals, and the cool thing is they haven't really changed that much. A tamale's always been a tamale, and I don't know why you would change it because they're perfect. Genuinely one of my favorite foods. So you might recognize this comal. We used it before in the Aztec taco episode, and it was my first time using a terracotta comal like this. I'm pretty happy with the char I got on my veggies. My peppers, onions, they're looking good to me. And a bunch of you told us in the comments that the reason why the comal burned was because we didn't season it. So thank you, we're learning from you. And we did try and season this one, and it looks like it's not sticking. It worked. You guys were right. We seasoned it. So I know all this blackening can look a little bit scary, but the char doesn't make it bitter or taste burnt. It's just gonna add a lot of depth and like savoriness. When you char things that want to be charred the right way, it actually adds really nice flavor. And then this is just like the first step of the cook. Once we blend it, this mixture is gonna simmer down with our iguana meat, and the flavor is just gonna get more deep and complex. There's still a lot of like chili residue. I'm feeling it in my throat. Every time we make mole or any kind of chili sauce at home, all of the neighbors know. This smell goes through the whole building. I can hear them coughing on the floor above us. Okay, the onions smell really good. Really good. I think we're in a good place. I'm gonna quit my charring, and now I guess we're gonna begin with a little bit of smashing. Okay, so we actually had to take 5 because I accidentally smoked out everybody. So we aired out the studio, and now we're back, and now we're gonna smash. There's a lot of smashing. Like back then they would have smashed the masa, and then you return to more smashing of your chilies. Hey, that actually, it's smashing a lot more easily than I thought. I've only ever done this in a blender. So I've got a little smasher here, but you can look online at the huge manos and metates that they use to grind the corn and the chilies, and it's really incredible. You just like sit on the floor and you're just like grinding away. Just from smashing a little bit, I can really smell the chilies. Like, it's so fruity and it's so fresh, and it's almost become the texture of a fresh chili from that short soak. So let me get in here with some of these guys. Whoa, look at them smush. Wow. This is one of the easier things I've smushed, gotta say. I thought that I would need a gift assist, but now I'm like, can I do this on my own? Okay, no. We're gonna bring in GIF. It's not the same, but you know what? We got a lot of things to do. It's gonna be good. Okay, so I'm gonna blitz this up in the blender with just enough water to bring it together. And this is gonna be the sauce that we cook our iguana meat in. Oh, this is very heavy. I'm gonna make sure I get all of this in here. But take a look, it already looks like that chipotle paste you buy in the can, just from a little bit of smashing. Now, a little splash of water, just enough to bring it together, and we are gonna have our iguana sauce. I'm so much closer to tasting iguana. Yay. I genuinely think that if the Mayans had Vita Preps, they would be using them. So, here's my chili puree. We went with guajillos because I feel like they're in almost every tamale. They're such a good chili, and chilies were actually held in such high regard that the Mayans and Aztecs would abstain from eating them during religious fasting periods. Now I'm gonna add some epazote. I feel like epazote makes things taste really accurate. Like, when you're cooking food from this region, epazote is key. It's a little bit like an oregano, but I feel like it's even earthier. And now it's finally time for our iguana meat. This is actually iguana meat. I know it looks like chicken, but we found it. We found iguana meat. You can tell that it looks almost like a bunch of chicken tenders. Like the muscle fibers look very different from chicken, but it does look very lean. They did have the option of purchasing a whole iguana with the skin on, but I didn't think that I would be able to figure out how to peel that and break it down. I imagine they have a lot of little small bones. Like, I feel like it's kind of like rabbit. Actually, that's exactly what the meat looks like. It's a lot like a rabbit. So we're gonna cook this until the meat's tender enough that I can shred it with a couple of forks. I'm not actually sure how long that's gonna take, so we're just gonna keep an eye on it. I think if it's anything like chicken, probably around 40 minutes. Big pinch of salt, we gotta season it up. I'm gonna start with this much, and then we'll taste it when it's almost done and maybe add some more. You wanna make sure you start with some salt though, because then the flesh will never really get seasoned all the way through. So I know tamales are a dish that's really tied to tradition and personal taste. So let me know, what are some of your favorite tamale fillings, especially special occasion ones around the holidays? What I think is great about tamales is you can put anything in there. Like, I've even had a tamale with chocolate inside and it was delicious. So what's the coolest tamale filling you've made? Okay, I've got a little gentle simmer. We're gonna let it go. I'm gonna keep an eye on it. I'm not sure how long it's gonna take, and then we will come back and shred. Now we're moving on to the Aztec filling. Once again, they didn't have cookbooks, so we're pulling inspiration from this recipe from the Florentine Codex. In it, Fray Bernardino de Sahagún wrote about how he saw the Aztecs make tamales with fruit and chilies, dog, and wild turkey. We decided to go with guavas. Guava is native to that area, so I think it's gonna make a delicious filling. And we're gonna add a little bit of chipotle for some heat. So I'm just gonna cook these guavas down in a bit of water. They're very ripe, so I'm gonna put them in whole, and I think they're gonna just be really easy to break up with a spoon. Let me add a splash of water in there, and we're gonna get it gently simmering. They do have really hard seeds that you can't eat. So once we cook this down into a paste, we're gonna pass it through a colander, and that's gonna catch our chili and coriander seeds and cinnamon. So we don't really have to worry too much about smashing it fine at this point. So chipotles, I'm gonna put them in whole. It's just gonna add a nice aroma. And we're gonna also add coriander and cinnamon. So in the 1500s, the Aztecs would have had coriander and cinnamon. It was one of the first things the Spanish conquistadors brought along with them, and it was also one of the first things they incorporated into their diet. Okay, so you see, as soon as I smash, see those little seeds? They are edible, but they're a little bit tough. I prefer eating them when you have like a slightly crunchy, unripe guava. My parents actually have like, I don't know, at this point probably 6 guava trees. When I was a kid, we started out with 1, but they just kept getting guava trees. I think it's my mom's like favorite fruit. And these sweet ones, we would always eat out of hand, just like, you know, like an apple or whatever. Nowadays, guava and cheese is a really common combo, but they wouldn't have cheese back then, so we're skipping it. But I do think I'm honestly gonna miss it. Guava and cheese is such a good combo. You can see how quickly it just breaks down and it gets really creamy looking. And you can't smell this, but this smells really good. Guava has a really nice, like, it's like a banana papaya had a baby kind of aroma. It's really nice. Right now, it almost looks like cooked down banana. A lot of tropical fruits have like that similar kind of vibe. Okay, I think that this is a good texture. So, like I said, there's a lot of pectin, so as soon as this cools, it's gonna thicken up really nice, and it's gonna be like the perfect consistency to put in our tamale. So I'm gonna turn this off right now. I'm gonna pass it so we can get rid of those seeds and spices. The main thing I smell is guava, but you have like the background notes from the cinnamon and the chili that I think are gonna be really nice. Okay, we press, we smush. There's so much smushing and smashing. That is the theme of every single episode. Let's make Sohla smash. So I'm gonna pass this mixture until I get out all of those seeds, and then we're gonna let this cool, and I think the iguana meat's probably ready to shred, and then we're gonna make our tamales. So the Aztecs made these festival tamales for the Lord of Fire, and they would wrap them in amaranth leaves, stuff them with greens, and serve it with a shrimp sauce. That sounds really good, and I think I need to go home and find amaranth leaves. Why didn't we make that one? That sounds delicious. It's crazy how some of these ancient combos, they still hold up. They must have really liked that Lord of Fire. The iguana meat is cooked and tender. It actually cooked a lot faster than I thought. Take a look at how it looks after cooking. Ooh, those fibers kind of stick out in a very different way than I've seen. I think I actually maybe even overcooked it. Didn't take that much time at all. But it feels a little bit tough and a little bit dry. I think it's very much like rabbit. Rabbit, if you've ever cooked it, you gotta be really careful with it. It can go from totally awesome to dry very quickly. Okay, so I'm gonna let my iguana meat cool, and we're gonna make our Aztec tamales first. Here's the cooled guava paste. You can see it thickened up quite a bit, and it's gonna be a nice filling for our tamales. Okay, so nowadays, the tamales that you see are usually shaped kind of like this, like an oblong rectangle kind of situation, but they found hieroglyphics in San Bartolo, Guatemala, dating back to 200 BC, showing that they used to form tamales into balls. So we're gonna try both shapes, and it'll help us, keep track of them in the steamer. So I'm gonna make our Aztec ones in the cylindrical shape that you can find. I guess it's a cylinder. The tamale shape you know and love. That's what we're gonna do with these tamales, and we're gonna make our Mayan filling into balls. So let's start forming. This is the best part. So we kept our masa covered so it didn't dry out. Look at that, it's still perfect and fresh and moist. And now we begin the formation. Okay, so I've seen a lot of people do this in different ways. My friend Rick Martinez, he likes to use like a spackle palette knife, something that you use for paint. It's not like a kitchen tool. He uses that to spread it on. But there's a bunch of different ways, and I think as long as you get there, that's great. So let's start with a little bit of filling. I'm not like a tamale expert. I love them and I make them when I have time, but I'm no Delia for sure. And then we're gonna add some of our guava filling right in the middle, a little dollop. A little bit goes a long way. And now we're gonna use the husk to kind of help us wrap it around. I think I can put more filling in there. I feel like the best tamales are when they get that ratio of filling to tamale mixture just right. And I think that's one of those things that just comes from practice. Okay. This is a little difficult without the lard, but we're doing our best here. So I'm gonna try and cover that up. Let's bring this bottom bit over. Okay, we're gonna try this. I think we're gonna be okay. Now you can also take your husk and rip it to make a little husk twine to tie this closed. You don't always have to do this, but I think I'm definitely gonna do it with these because the masa is a little bit different than what I'm used to. I think we need the extra help. Okay, and then you proceed. Fold it over. Okay, so we're back to our iguana meat. It's had some time to cool, it's nicely shredded, and now we're going to make our Mayan tamales. So I'm gonna try and go for the circle shape. I've never made a circle shaped tamale, but my instinct tells me that this won't work, right? So I'm gonna split it in half and go for this kind of situation. I don't know. We'll figure this out together. Now, the tamales back then were a lot smaller. They even called it out in the Florentine Codex, how teeny tiny their tamales were. So we're keeping it tight too. I think that keeping it small is also gonna make it easier to make a ball shape. Okay, my thought is I go for like, spread it out into a circle, and then when I bundle the husk together, it will ball for me. Let's go for a little bit of this iguana meat. I've got my thread ready. Okay. I feel once again very much like I am making a dumpling. Everything's squidging out. No, I need a bigger circle. Well, I'm gonna tie this up because I don't want to waste it. But I think for round 2, bigger circle. You know, first attempt. I see why we've moved on to the cylindrical shape. This seems like it would be a lot harder to make, and you must keep them small, and like nowadays we're all about everything's huge. Okay, let's try again. I'm gonna go for 1 piece. I'm gonna spread this out. Let's go for the hands again. This masa seems to respond well to wet hands, better than the spoon. Okay, so far so good. I'm gonna have this at the ready. I'm kind of thinking of it like, have you made a steam bun? And when you wrap the dough around, I think we're getting closer to something. How small were they? Were they like little munchkins? Like, you know those donut holes you get, but tamale version? It's finally time to cook our tamales. There is some debate as to how they might have cooked the tamales, whether they steamed them, baked them, grilled them. We're gonna steam, and one of the ways that they would have steamed is by creating a steaming basket and filling a pot with rocks, which I think is really cool. So we got these fancy rocks brought all the way from, are they from Mexico? I think they're actually from Mexico. That was an accident, that wasn't on purpose. But we're gonna fill the bottom of the pot with rocks, and that's gonna elevate the tamales so they don't sit in the water. We just want the steam. So now that we've got our bed of rocks, I'm gonna line the rocks with some of these husks to prevent the tamales from sticking. Although the Aztecs did believe that if you had a tamale that stuck to the bottom of the pot, that it was actually good luck and it would help you on the battlefield. But I just wanna eat them, you know? I'm not preparing for battle. I want to be able to eat every single one of these. So I'm gonna go for this little stickage protection. I'm gonna start with the round, my circle tamales, as circle as I was able to get them, right in the middle, and then I wanna try and kind of have the longer tamales stacked up against it so they're not like totally flat. I'm not totally sure how long it's gonna take because I haven't made tamales without lard, but we're gonna know it's done when the filling feels a little bit, when the masa feels a little bit set and firm. I'm gonna check on it after like half an hour. I think it's gonna be like half an hour to 45 minutes. These are quite small, so maybe it'll be faster than that. All right, I'm gonna cover these up, and we're gonna fire it up, let them steam, and then we're gonna come back, and it's gonna be time to taste our little tamale throwdown. It's time to dig in. So I was really worried. I've never made a tamale without any lard, so I had no idea how long these were gonna take to cook, but I guess because they're so teeny tiny, it only took 20 minutes to steam, and I guess I'm gonna dig in. I wanna start, you know, in chronological order, so I wanna start with the ancient Mayan ones, these little round guys. Little parcel, it's like opening a present. It smells really, really good, like really, just like that masa was so good that like the aroma from here is incredible. Now, I'm also like a little worried, like, is this gonna stick without the lard? Will we have a beautiful little bundle? Okay, my formation wasn't top-notch here. As you can see, it did just kind of fall apart, and it is like sticking a bit to the husk. I think without the lard, it's kind of hard to get that clean release. Or maybe I'm just like not a pro at this yet, you know? But we're gonna taste. The chilies smell really, really good. So this has like those traditional native ingredients, the epazote, the guajillo, the chipotle, and it's really all coming through. I love what happens when you cook epazote. It gets very, very earthy. So from the steam, the iguana meat got very tender. It has a slight bit of game. It's a lot like chicken or rabbit, very lean and mild, but just like a tiny, tiny whisper of funk, nothing offensive. The dough itself, it does just feel a little bit dense. It's not very tender. It is a little bit dense. There's like a slight gumminess to it, but it's still really, really tasty. Like it's just very flavorful masa, so you can't go that wrong. But yeah, if you didn't tell me it was iguana, I'd be like, whatever. Maybe even like a wild boar kind of flavor. You know what I mean? White meat, but like it's lived an exciting life. Okay, I definitely didn't get the ball right. I need to keep trying. But let's get into our guava. Let's see. Ooh. Oh. Whoa. I can really smell the cinnamon. I like that. This feels very holiday already. Festive. Very holiday all around, you know? You're unwrapping it. It's like a little gift. If you have them all the same shape, you don't know what's inside. It's like a surprise. Yeah, it's peeling, but it's definitely, when you have a tamale made with lard, it just, the husk really easily comes off. And that's definitely not happening here. Some tamales, the husk is just like dripping in grease. I think that's a good sign. These are a bit dry. Let me give this guy a taste. The flavor of the guava itself feels really subtle. I think because we didn't have sugar in here, I'm getting mostly like cinnamon, not so much of the coriander, but it's mostly cinnamon, and it finishes with just like a little bit of heat in the back of your throat from the chipotle. The texture of the filling is actually really nice. It looks quite loose when we put it in there, but it kind of thickened up, and it's like really creamy and almost custardy. And with this like really mild taste, it almost feels like this could be like a dairy custardy kind of filling. I think it's really tasty, actually. I mean, obviously they're both really different. This is like your spicy entree tamale. This is your sweet creamy dessert tamale. I think the main thing that is different about this versus a modern tamale is just the texture of the masa itself. It's a little less tender, got a little bit of bounce, but I think because we started with tasty masa, it's still tasty. I think this just proves that all tamales are delicious. And I'm like, I mean, I think all we just need to do is top it with a little bit of sour cream, and we're gonna get through all of these. Yeah, I think they're still really tasty, and it was really fun to try and like make, you know, an ancient tamale. I enjoyed this episode a lot. If you like this episode, be sure to like and subscribe. And if there's an ancient or vintage recipe you want to see me try out, let us know in the comments, and I'll see you here next time.